She had always been quiet, the kind of student who blended into the background. Most of her classmates barely noticed her, and for the teachers, she was just another face in the classroom. They never imagined that behind her shy demeanor was a mind full of ideas and a heart full of dreams. Every day, she sat at the back of the classroom, taking careful notes, trying to keep up. Even when the lessons felt too fast, too loud, or too complicated, teachers often spoke to her with impatience, not realizing that their words left marks that stayed for a long time. It wasn't that she didn't understand the lessons. She did, in her own way, but the way the teachers taught, the way the classrooms were set up, often made her feel invisible. Questions she asked were sometimes ignored or brushed off. Comments she made were met with frowns or sighs. Some teachers even said things in front of the class that made her feel small, like she was not capable of achieving more. Words like average and ordinary were thrown around, sometimes jokingly, sometimes not. These words stayed in her mind long after the bell rang. They made her question herself, even though deep down she knew they were wrong. Despite all of this, she had a spark inside her, a small but persistent flame that refused to go out. It was her love for music that kept her going. At home, she spent hours with her piano, fingers moving over the keys with a kind of quiet determination that no one in her school could see. Her parents had noticed her talent early, but they were careful not to push her too hard. They encouraged her gently, telling her that if she loved music, she should follow it. No matter what anyone else said, the piano became her refuge, a place where the noise of the world and the sting of hurtful words couldn't reach her. It was a place where she felt free, a place where her soul could speak in a language that words could not. Her days at school were often difficult. Some students made fun of her, calling her names or laughing when she tried to answer questions. Even though she felt hurt, she never stopped trying. She believed that one day, the people who laughed at her would see something they could not ignore. She worked in silence, carrying her dreams quietly inside her. Knowing that no one could take her music away from her, she had always been observant, noticing things that others missed. She could see patterns in numbers, understand the feelings behind words, and hear the smallest variations in sounds. But her teachers rarely noticed these abilities. They were focused on grades and test scores, on the things they thought mattered most. They didn't see her creativity, her sensitivity, or her determination. They didn't see the way she practiced for hours at home, perfecting her skills, learning by herself, and growing in ways that a classroom could not measure. Even though she felt invisible at school, she never let it take away her love for learning. She would spend time in the library, reading books that sparked her imagination. She read about famous musicians, artists, and inventors, people who had faced challenges and ridicule, but had gone on to achieve greatness. Their stories gave her hope. They reminded her that even if the world didn't see her talent now, one day, it would doubt. Her parents were her biggest supporters. They didn't have much money, but they gave her what they could: time, encouragement, and love. They listened to her play the piano and praised her for her progress. Even when she felt like she hadn't done enough, they reminded her that talent was not about being the fastest or the loudest or the most visible. It was about dedication, passion, and heart. These lessons stayed with her, shaping the way she saw herself and the way she approached the world. Sometimes, late at night, she would sit by the window and watch the stars, imagining what her life could be like if people saw her for who she really was. She dreamed of performing in front of a crowd, of sharing her music with the world, and of feeling proud of herself, not for what anyone else thought, but for what she had achieved through hard work and love for her craft. The dream felt far away, almost impossible, but it was a dream she held onto tightly, a dream that made the long, difficult days at school a little easier to bear. Even with all the challenges, she never gave up. She knew that talent alone was not enough. It required courage, patience, and persistence. Every day, she faced the ridicule, the misunderstandings, and the doubts with quiet strength. She learned to keep her head down when necessary, but also to stand tall in the moments that mattered. She learned that the world might not always notice talent immediately, but with dedication, it would eventually see what she had to offer. Her music became her voice. When she played, she could express everything she felt: the frustration, the hope, the sadness, and the joy. Each note was a reflection of her journey, a story that no one could tell for her. She poured her heart into every melody, every chord, every rhythm. The piano became more than an instrument. It was a companion, a teacher, and a source of comfort. Through it, she found confidence that she didn't have anywhere else, a confidence that was quiet but unwavering. She also began to notice that her talent extended beyond music. She had a way of seeing the world differently, of finding beauty in ordinary things, and of understanding emotions that others could not. These gifts were subtle, but they were powerful. They shaped her thinking, her creativity, and the way she interacted with the people around her. Even though the teachers didn't notice, she was growing in ways that no classroom test could measure. At school, she tried to focus on small victories, completing a difficult assignment, solving a challenging problem, or making a small improvement in her music became moments of triumph. She celebrated these quietly, not needing recognition from others, but feeling proud nonetheless. These victories kept her going, giving her the courage to face each new day, even when the environment was discouraging. Sometimes, she wondered if anyone would ever truly see her, if anyone would ever recognize the depth of her talent and the strength of her spirit. But she refused to let the doubts of others define her. She knew that recognition was not the same as validation, and she had learned to validate herself through her dedication and effort. She reminded herself that one day, the work she was putting in now would pay off, and the people who doubted her would be surprised by what she could achieve. Even in moments of sadness, she found inspiration. Music was always there, offering solace and hope. She discovered that the act of creating, of expressing herself through sound, was a source of empowerment. It reminded her that her value was not determined by what others thought, but by what she knew she could do. Every time her fingers touched the keys, she felt a sense of freedom and possibility that no words could capture. Through all the ridicule and doubt, she developed resilience. She learned to ignore the negative voices and focus on her own growth. She became patient with herself, understanding that mastery and recognition take time. She also became empathetic toward others, realizing that many people face similar struggles and doubts. Even if they appear confident on the outside, her experiences taught her compassion and humility, qualities that would serve her well in life. By the end of the school year, she had grown in ways that were invisible to the teachers, but undeniable in her own heart. She had become stronger, more confident, and more determined than ever to pursue her passion. She knew that the journey would not be easy, but she also knew that she had the talent, the discipline, and the heart to succeed. Her dreams of performing and being recognized were still alive, burning brighter than ever, fueled by every challenge she had faced. Every day, as she walked through the halls of her school, she carried herself with a quiet dignity. She no longer sought approval from the teachers who had dismissed her. Instead, she focused on her music, her learning, and her growth. She understood that true success was not about being seen or praised by others, but about achieving her own potential and honoring her passion. Each step she took was a step toward the moment when her talent would finally be undeniable, when the world could no longer ignore her, and when she could stand proud of what she had accomplished against all odds. The school was buzzing with excitement about the annual talent show. Students were rehearsing in the hallways, talking about the performances they would give, and planning the pieces they would present. There was a lot of chatter, laughter, and some nervous energy, but for her, the thought of participating brought both hope and fear. She had always dreamed of performing, of showing the world what she could do with her music. Yet, the memory of the teacher's ridicule and the students' laughter made her hesitate. Doubts crept into her mind, whispering that she might fail, that it might be too much for her to try, and that people would just laugh again. She watched her classmates practice, some confident and others nervous like her, and she felt a mix of admiration and envy. They seemed so fearless, so sure of themselves, and she wondered if she could ever feel that way. Every time she thought about signing up, a voice in her head reminded her of past humiliations, the teacher's words, the moments when she was ignored or mocked. The fear was real, but so was the dream she held close to her heart. Her parents noticed her hesitation and gently encouraged her. They reminded her that talent alone was not enough. Courage was just as important. They told her that the only way to silence doubt both from others and from herself was to take a step forward. It wasn't about winning or losing. It was about showing her abilities and standing up for herself. Their words sank in slowly, giving her a small spark of confidence. She realized that the talent she had nurtured in the quiet hours at home was not something to hide anymore. It was something to share. She spent the next few days preparing, practicing more than ever. Every evening after school, she would sit at the piano, running through scales, perfecting pieces she had been working on for months, and experimenting with new melodies. Each note she played was filled with emotion and intention. She focused on the rhythm, the tone, and the flow, making sure every movement of her fingers was precise. Sometimes, she would stop and replay a part over and over again, refusing to let a single mistake go unnoticed. Her determination grew with every practice session, and slowly, she began to feel ready. Despite the preparation, her anxiety never fully disappeared. Thoughts of the talent show made her stomach twist in knots, and there were nights when she lay awake, wondering if she was making a mistake. She worried about how the teachers would react, about whether her classmates would laugh, and about whether she could handle the pressure of performing in front of an audience. But deep down, she knew that these fears were part of the journey. The dream of performing, of sharing her music, was bigger than the fear of judgment. At school, the announcement board listed the participants, and she hesitated before signing her name. Her friends noticed and tried to encourage her, but some of them had their doubts too. "Are you sure?" they asked, trying to be careful not to discourage her. "It's a big crowd, and everyone will be watching." She nodded, forcing herself to feel brave even when her heart was pounding. Signing up felt like a declaration, a statement that she would not be silenced by doubt or ridicule. It was the first real step in a journey she had dreamed about for so long. As the days passed, she continued to practice, often staying late in the music room. The piano became her refuge, her source of courage, and the place where she could imagine the applause, the smiles, and the admiration that she secretly longed for. Each note she played was a reminder that she was capable, that her talent was real, and that she had the right to share it. She poured every ounce of emotion into her music, imagining the performance and how she wanted it to touch the audience. Her classmates began to talk about the upcoming talent show more openly. Some were confident, joking and laughing, planning their acts with excitement. Others, like her, were quietly anxious. She noticed the teachers walking around, checking on rehearsals, and giving advice. A few of the teachers made comments about how they doubted certain students' abilities, sometimes even hinting that a performance could be a waste of time. She felt the sting of those words, but instead of letting them stop her, she used them as fuel. She promised herself that she would show them, not through words, but through action. Her friends began to gather for small practice sessions together, offering feedback and encouragement. She found that when she played for them, her confidence grew. They would listen in silence, nodding appreciatively at her melodies, offering smiles and gentle compliments. These small moments gave her courage. She realized that while teachers and strangers might doubt her, there were people who believed in her talent and supported her journey. This support, small but meaningful, strengthened her resolve. The night before the talent show, she barely slept. Her mind was a mix of excitement and worry. She imagined herself walking on stage, sitting at the piano, and beginning to play. She envisioned the audience's reactions, the silence as they listened, and the moment when her music would reach their hearts. At the same time, she imagined things going wrong, a wrong note, a forgotten passage, or someone laughing at her. The fear was intense, but she reminded herself of all the hours she had spent preparing, all the sacrifices, all the practice, and the love she had poured into her music. She repeated quietly to herself that she was ready, that she had worked hard, and that her talent was real. The morning of the talent show arrived, and she walked into the school auditorium, which was already filled with participants rehearsing and adjusting their performances. The air was thick with nervous energy, excitement, and anticipation. She felt a surge of fear, but also a flicker of hope. She reminded herself that this was her chance to step out of the shadows, to share her music, and to stand for herself. Every step toward the stage felt like a battle, but also like progress. When it was finally her turn to go on stage, she took a deep breath and stepped into the spotlight. The audience seemed enormous, and for a moment, she froze, overwhelmed by the bright lights, the eyes on her, and the weight of expectation. She felt the memories of ridicule and doubt pressing down, but she also felt the love and encouragement of her parents, the support of her friends, and the countless hours of practice she had poured into her talent. She reminded herself that this moment was not about them, it was about her, her music, and her courage. Sitting at the piano, she closed her eyes for a brief moment, letting herself breathe, letting herself imagine the music flowing through her fingers. Then she placed her hands on the keys and began to play. At first, the notes were soft and hesitant, a reflection of her nerves, but as she continued, the music began to grow stronger, more confident, and more expressive. Each note carried a piece of her story, a reflection of the struggles, the hopes, and the dreams she had nurtured quietly for so long. She felt the music move through her, filling the auditorium with sound that was both powerful and delicate. As she played, something incredible happened. The fear began to fade, replaced by a sense of flow and connection. She was no longer thinking about the audience, the teachers, or the students. She was only thinking about the music, letting it guide her hands, her heart, and her mind. The melodies she had practiced countless times became alive, resonating with emotion and life. Each chord was precise, each movement deliberate, and every note told a story that words could never capture. The audience began to notice the change. The whispers and chatter quieted down. Students leaned forward in their seats, captivated by the sound. Teachers, some of whom had doubted her abilities, looked up in surprise, their expressions shifting from skepticism to awe. Her music filled the room, creating a connection that was immediate and undeniable. For the first time, she felt seen, not just for her talent, but for the courage it took to step into the spotlight despite everything. By the time she finished, there was a moment of complete silence, a pause in which the audience processed what they had just experienced. Then, slowly, applause began to rise, growing louder and louder, until the room was filled with clapping, cheering, and admiration. She felt a rush of emotion, tears welling up in her eyes, not from fear, but from the overwhelming sense of accomplishment and recognition. She had faced her doubts, ignored the ridicule, and shown her true talent to the world. This was the moment she had dreamed of, the moment when her quiet determination became impossible to ignore. The day of the talent show arrived, and the school auditorium was buzzing with energy. Students moved about nervously, rehearsing lines, adjusting instruments, and offering each other encouragement. The air was filled with a mix of excitement, anxiety, and anticipation. She felt a whirlwind of emotions as she made her way to the auditorium. Her heart raced, her hands trembled slightly, and her stomach twisted with nervousness. She tried to steady herself, remembering all the hours she had spent practicing, all the effort she had put in, and all the quiet determination that had brought her to this point. As she entered the auditorium, she saw the stage, bathed in bright lights, and rows of seats filled with students, parents, and teachers. Some faces were familiar, some intimidating, and some she had never noticed before. She took a deep breath and tried to focus. This was the moment she had been preparing for. Every note she would play, every movement of her fingers, every breath she took would be a reflection of her dedication and passion. She reminded herself that this was her chance to show what she was capable of, and that she was ready. The host called names one by one, and performers went on stage, receiving applause for their acts. Some were confident, some nervous, and some made mistakes. But each performance added to the growing tension and excitement in the room. She waited, feeling the butterflies in her stomach grow stronger with every passing minute. Her turn was approaching, and with it, a mixture of fear and anticipation. She reminded herself that this was more than just a performance. It was a statement of who she was and what she could do. When her name was finally called, she felt a surge of adrenaline. The audience turned to watch her as she walked to the stage. Every step felt heavy, yet purposeful. She felt the weight of their eyes on her, the unspoken judgments and expectations. Some teachers had their usual skeptical looks, while some students whispered, unsure of what to expect. She took a deep breath, centered herself, and approached the piano. Sitting down on the bench, she placed her fingers gently on the keys. Feeling the smooth surface beneath them, she closed her eyes for a brief moment, listening to the quiet hum of anticipation in the room. And then she began to play. The first notes were soft, almost tentative. She was aware of the audience, of the teachers, of every person in the room, but she focused on the music, on the story she wanted to tell through her playing. The melody flowed slowly at first, delicate and careful, each note chosen with intention. As she continued, her confidence grew, and the music began to fill the room with a presence that was impossible to ignore. The rhythm, the emotion, and the subtle changes in tempo created a journey that captivated everyone who was listening. Her fingers moved with precision and grace, guided by years of practice and a deep understanding of the music. Each chord, each arpeggio, carried emotion, telling a story without words. The audience was drawn in, their initial whispers replaced by focused attention. Students leaned forward, their eyes wide with surprise, as they realized that the quiet girl from the back of the classroom was creating something extraordinary. Teachers who had doubted her abilities could no longer hide their astonishment. They watched, speechless, as her music filled every corner of the auditorium, transforming the space with its beauty and intensity. As the performance continued, she began to lose herself in the music. The nervousness, the fear, the memories of ridicule, all of it faded away. What remained was her connection to the piano, to the sound, and to the story she wanted to tell. Her heart beat in time with the rhythm, her emotions flowed into every note, and her mind became completely focused on the music. She felt free, powerful, and alive. Every key she pressed was a declaration, a statement that she would no longer be ignored or underestimated. The audience responded to her performance in subtle but meaningful ways. Faces softened, eyes glistened with emotion, and hands clutched at the edges of seats in anticipation. There was a collective holding of breath, a silent acknowledgement that something extraordinary was happening. Teachers exchanged looks of surprise, some nodding in appreciation, others simply unable to process the talent that had been right in front of them all along. Students who had previously whispered or laughed found themselves captivated, unable to look away. The energy in the room shifted, and for the first time, she felt the power of her talent resonate beyond the walls of practice rooms. And her own determination. She experimented with dynamics, moving from soft, delicate passages to powerful, resonant chords. Each variation drew the audience deeper into her world, making them feel the emotions she was expressing. The performance was no longer just an act. It had become a conversation between her and everyone listening. The music spoke truths that words could not, revealing her struggles, her resilience, and her brilliance. Every note was intentional, every pause meaningful, creating an atmosphere that left no room for doubt or distraction. The climax of the performance arrived, and her fingers moved with a speed and accuracy that was breathtaking. The audience felt the intensity, the emotion, and the mastery all at once. It was a moment where time seemed to stand still, where the music held the power to captivate, inspire, and awe. Teachers who had once ridiculed her now watched in complete disbelief, realizing that the student they had underestimated possessed a genius they had never recognized. Students whispered to one another, their previous judgments fading, replaced by admiration and wonder. As the final notes rang out, there was a moment of complete silence, a pause that allowed the weight of the performance to settle in the room. Then, slowly, applause began to ripple through the audience, growing louder and louder until it became a thunderous ovation. The sound of clapping, cheering, and excited murmurs filled the auditorium. She felt a wave of relief, joy, and pride wash over her. Tears formed in her eyes, not from fear or nervousness, but from the overwhelming realization that she had succeeded, that she had been seen, and that her talent could not be denied. After the performance, she rose from the piano, bowing slightly to the audience. The applause continued, echoing in her ears and in her heart. Teachers approached her, some with hesitant smiles, others with looks of genuine admiration. They acknowledged her talent, sometimes quietly, sometimes with words that seemed almost impossible after the years of doubt and ridicule. Students gathered around, expressing awe and amazement, some clapping her on the back, some simply smiling in admiration. She realized that the moment she had dreamed of had arrived, the moment where her talent, dedication, and courage were recognized by everyone in the room. As she left the stage, she felt a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. The nervousness that had weighed on her for weeks had vanished, replaced by a sense of accomplishment and pride. She had faced her fears, challenged the doubts, and shown the world the truth about herself. The experience was transformative, leaving her with a confidence that had previously been only a dream. She understood that this was only the beginning, that her journey would continue, but that she now possessed the courage and proof of her abilities to face whatever came next. The performance changed the way people saw her. Teachers who had dismissed her now sought to understand her abilities, asking questions about her practice, her techniques, and her inspirations. Students who had laughed or doubted her now looked up to her, inspired by her courage and skill. She had not only shared her music, she had reshaped the perception of who she was, proving that talent and determination could overcome years of doubt and ridicule. That day, she realized the power of persistence, passion, and self-belief. The music had been her voice, her shield, and her triumph. It had allowed her to speak in a way that words could never convey, and to be heard in a way that had previously seemed impossible. The stage had become a place of validation, a space where her talent could shine and be recognized, not just by teachers or peers, but by herself as well. She left the auditorium that day with a new sense of purpose, knowing that her journey was just beginning, and that the world would now have to see her as she truly was, a gifted, determined, and courageous young musician. After her performance, the atmosphere in the auditorium was completely transformed. The whispers of doubt and ridicule that had filled the halls for years were replaced by a sense of awe and admiration. Students who had once laughed at her sat in stunned silence, realizing they had underestimated her in every way. Teachers who had dismissed her quietly began to recognize the talent that had been in front of them all along. It was a moment of revelation, a turning point that no one would forget. The music she had played was not just a performance. It was a declaration of her courage, her skill, and her perseverance. She felt a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration as she left the stage, her heart still pounding from the intensity of the performance. Sweat clung to her brow, but her eyes shone with a light that came from pride and relief. The journey to this moment had been long and difficult, filled with doubt, ridicule, and countless hours of practice. But now, all of that struggle seemed worth it. She had shown everyone, and most importantly herself, what she was capable of. The applause still echoed in her ears, a reminder that her dedication had not gone unnoticed. As she walked through the auditorium, students came up to her, their faces filled with awe and admiration. They asked questions about her practice, the techniques she had used, and how she had managed to stay so calm under pressure. Some were shy, barely able to speak, while others were more confident, eager to express how impressed they were. Every compliment, every word of encouragement, filled her with a sense of validation that she had rarely experienced. She realized that the courage to perform, despite her fears, had inspired others as much as it had revealed her own talent. Teachers, too, approached her, some with hesitant smiles, others with genuine admiration. They asked about her training, her inspirations, and the process she used to develop such mastery over the piano. For years, they had overlooked her abilities, but now they could not deny the skill, discipline, and heart that she had brought to her performance. Some admitted quietly that they had been wrong, that they had judged too quickly, and that they had failed to recognize the potential that had always been there. The moment was humbling, yet empowering, as it marked a shift in how she was perceived and respected. Her parents arrived shortly after the performance, rushing to her side with proud smiles and tears in their eyes. They hugged her tightly, expressing how amazed they were by her talent and how proud they felt of her courage. Their support had been unwavering throughout her journey, and seeing the joy and recognition she now received was a moment of deep satisfaction for them. They reminded her that talent, combined with dedication and courage, could overcome even the harshest of doubts. Their words reinforced the sense of accomplishment and gave her a renewed confidence in her abilities. She reflected on the journey that had led to this moment. The ridicule, the overlooked talent, the moments of doubt, all of it had shaped her, teaching her resilience, patience, and determination. She realized that the challenges she had faced were not obstacles to her success, but lessons that had prepared her for this very moment. Every tear, every sleepless night, every criticism she had endured contributed to the strength and skill she displayed on stage. It was a powerful realization that transformed her understanding of herself and her capabilities. The talent show had also changed her perspective on the people around her. She saw that everyone carried their own fears, insecurities, and doubts, often hidden behind confident exteriors. Her own journey had made her more empathetic, allowing her to appreciate the struggles others faced, even if they did not show them openly. She understood that encouragement and support could make a difference in someone's life, just as her parents' unwavering belief in her had. This awareness deepened her connection with those around her, making her more compassionate and understanding. In the days following the performance, the change in her school life was noticeable. Students treated her with newfound respect, often seeking her advice or guidance on music and other creative endeavors. Teachers who had doubted her abilities were more attentive, offering constructive feedback and opportunities to further develop her skills. She noticed that her presence in the classroom carried a different energy, one of recognition, appreciation, and inspiration. The shift was not just in how others saw her, but in how she saw herself. Confidence replaced hesitation, and pride replaced fear. Her performance also sparked a ripple effect among her peers. Students who had previously been hesitant to participate in creative activities found encouragement in her example. They realized that dedication, courage, and talent could overcome fear and ridicule, and that stepping forward, despite doubt, could lead to recognition and success. She became a quiet role model, not through words or teaching, but through the example she had set with her actions. Her journey inspired others to pursue their passions with determination and to trust in their own abilities. Despite the accolades and recognition, she remained humble. She knew that this moment, as incredible as it was not the end of her journey. There would be more challenges, more opportunities to prove herself, and more obstacles to overcome. Yet, she faced the future with a sense of readiness and confidence. She had learned that talent, combined with perseverance and courage, could break through barriers and silence doubt. This lesson would guide her in all future endeavors, both musical and personal. The music that had captivated the audience continued to resonate within her. She realized that her performance had been more than a display of skill. It had been a manifestation of her journey, her struggles, and her triumphs. Every note had carried the weight of years of dedication. Every chord had expressed the depth of her emotions. And every melody had told the story of a young person who refused to be silenced. The power of music, and the courage to share it, had created a lasting impact, both on herself and on everyone who had witnessed it. As she looked back on her experience, she felt a profound sense of gratitude. Gratitude for her parents who had believed in her, for the music that had been her refuge, and for the journey that had taught her resilience and courage. She understood that every challenge, every moment of doubt, and every experience of ridicule had contributed to the strength and skill she displayed. Her performance was not just a personal victory, it was a testament to the power of perseverance, passion, and self-belief. The auditorium, once filled with whispers of doubt and skepticism, had become a place of recognition and respect. Her music had transformed the space, leaving a mark that could not be erased. The audience had experienced not just a performance, but a story of courage and triumph. They had witnessed the power of dedication and the impact of believing in oneself, even when the world doubts. The experience left an indelible impression on everyone present, reinforcing the idea that talent and determination could overcome even the harshest criticism. In the weeks that followed, she continued to practice, refine her skills, and explore new musical challenges. The recognition she had received fueled her motivation, but it did not define her. She remained focused on the journey, understanding that true growth comes from continuous effort and learning. Her experience at the talent show had taught her that success was not just about recognition or applause, but about the courage to step forward, the dedication to improve, and the resilience to overcome doubt. Through it all, she maintained a sense of humility and gratitude. She understood that her journey was shaped by the support and encouragement of those who believed in her, by the lessons learned from challenges and setbacks, and by the passion that drove her to pursue her dreams. Her performance had been a turning point, but it was also a reminder that every step, every practice session, and every effort contributed to the growth and development that would continue throughout her life. The impact of her performance extended beyond the school walls. It became a story shared among students, parents, and teachers, a story of courage, determination, and the transformative power of talent. She had become a symbol of inspiration, demonstrating that perseverance and self-belief could overcome years of doubt and ridicule. Her journey was a testament to the idea that true talent, combined with dedication and courage, cannot be ignored, and that the courage to step forward can change the way the world sees you. After the talent show, her life began to change in ways she had never imagined. The recognition she received that day was not just for the music she had played, but for the courage, determination, and perseverance she had shown. Students who had ignored or laughed at her began to treat her differently, with respect and curiosity. They wanted to understand how she had achieved such mastery and how she had remained calm under the pressure of performing in front of a large audience. The same teachers who had once dismissed her abilities now approached her with interest, asking questions about her practice methods, the pieces she had chosen, and the inspiration behind her music. Their acknowledgement, though late, was meaningful. It confirmed what she had always known about herself, that her talent and dedication were real and valuable. Her parents were overjoyed. They had believed in her from the beginning, even when others had doubted, and seeing her succeed filled them with pride. They reminded her that this recognition was just the beginning, not the destination. Talent and dedication could open doors, but it was persistence, humility, and the continued desire to improve that would shape her future. Their words reinforced the lessons she had learned along the way, that the journey mattered as much as the achievement, and that every challenge faced along the path was a stepping stone toward growth. At school, she found herself more confident. She no longer feared ridicule or judgment because she knew the truth of her abilities. This newfound confidence extended beyond music. In classrooms, she began to participate more actively, asking questions and sharing ideas with a sense of authority and assurance. Her peers noticed the change, and many sought her advice on creative projects or looked to her for inspiration when they faced their own challenges. Her experience had taught her that courage was contagious, and she found herself becoming a quiet leader, not through words or force, but through example. The talent show had also sparked a deeper passion for music. She realized that performing was not just about recognition, but about connecting with people, expressing emotion, and telling stories without words. She began to experiment with different genres, exploring new melodies, harmonies, and rhythms. Each day of practice became an adventure, a way to push her boundaries and discover new aspects of her abilities. She approached her music with a sense of joy and curiosity, understanding that mastery was a journey rather than a destination. She also began to mentor younger students who shared her love for music. They looked up to her not only for her skill but for the courage she had demonstrated in overcoming doubt and ridicule. She taught them to embrace their own talents, to practice diligently, and to believe in themselves even when others doubted them. Through mentoring, she realized the importance of giving back, of helping others find the confidence to pursue their passions. The act of guiding others became a source of fulfillment, reinforcing her own sense of purpose and reinforcing the lessons she had learned along the way. Despite the recognition and admiration she received, she remained humble. She knew that talent alone was not enough and that continued effort, dedication, and resilience were essential to growth. She reflected on the challenges she had faced, the ridicule, the doubts, the moments of fear, and recognized that each had contributed to her development. Every setback had taught her patience, perseverance, and the value of hard work. These lessons became the foundation upon which she built her future, ensuring that her achievements were grounded in understanding and experience. Her relationship with the teachers who had once ridiculed her evolved. Some became supportive mentors, offering guidance and constructive feedback. Others, still cautious, observed her progress with growing respect. She realized that their earlier doubt had been a reflection of their limited perspective, not of her abilities. Understanding this helped her approach future interactions with empathy and patience. Recognizing that people's judgments are often shaped by their own experiences and biases, she learned to focus on her growth rather than the opinions of others, using criticism constructively and letting praise reinforce her confidence. The experience of performing and being recognized also influenced her personal growth. She became more self-aware, understanding her strengths and areas for improvement. She developed resilience, learning to face challenges with determination rather than fear. She discovered the importance of preparation, focus, and emotional control, recognizing that talent must be paired with discipline to achieve excellence. These skills extended beyond music, shaping her approach to academics, relationships, and life in general. She became a more balanced and confident individual, capable of navigating challenges with grace and determination. Her success inspired her to set higher goals. She began to consider opportunities beyond the school stage, exploring competitions, recitals, and community performances. The idea of sharing her music with larger audiences excited her, and she approached each new opportunity with the same dedication and passion that had brought her to success at the talent show. She understood that growth required stepping outside of her comfort zone, embracing challenges, and continuing to push the limits of her abilities. The journey that had begun in a quiet practice room at home was now expanding into new realms, each step guided by the lessons she had learned. She also recognized the importance of gratitude. The support of her parents, the guidance of mentors, and the encouragement of friends had played a crucial role in her success. She learned to appreciate the contributions of others, acknowledging that no achievement is entirely individual. This sense of gratitude extended to her music itself, to the process of learning, practicing, and performing, and to the opportunities she had been given to grow and showcase her abilities. Gratitude became a guiding principle, shaping her interactions, her work ethic, and her approach to life. As she continued to pursue her passion, she encountered new challenges, each requiring focus, creativity, and resilience. There were moments of doubt, mistakes, and setbacks, but she approached each one as a learning opportunity. Her previous experiences had taught her that failure was not a defeat, but a chance to grow stronger, to refine skills, and to gain perspective. She learned to embrace challenges with curiosity and determination, understanding that each obstacle was a necessary part of the journey toward mastery. Her story became a source of inspiration for others. Students who had struggled with self-doubt looked to her as an example of perseverance and courage. Teachers who had underestimated her talent reconsidered their approach to nurturing students' abilities, recognizing the potential in every individual. She had become a symbol of what dedication, passion, and self-belief could achieve. Her journey demonstrated that even in the face of ridicule, doubt, and obstacles, it was possible to rise above and achieve recognition and success. Through it all, she maintained a balance between humility and pride, She was proud of her accomplishments, yet aware of the ongoing journey and the effort required to continue growing. She celebrated her successes quietly, using them as motivation to pursue new challenges, rather than as a reason to stop learning. This balance allowed her to stay grounded, focused, and committed to her growth, ensuring that her achievements were sustainable and meaningful. In the end, her experience was transformative. The ridicule she had faced no longer defined her. Instead, it had shaped her into a resilient, determined, and talented individual. Her performance had silenced doubt, both in the eyes of others and within herself. It had demonstrated the power of dedication, courage, and self-belief. She had learned that true talent is not just about skill, but about the willingness to face fear, embrace challenges, and persevere despite obstacles. This lesson would guide her throughout her life, influencing not only her music, but every aspect of her personal and professional growth. Her journey was a testament to the idea that greatness often emerges from quiet determination, that recognition may come after years of unseen effort, and that courage and persistence can transform doubt into admiration. She had taken the ridicule, the doubt, and the dismissive words of others and turned them into motivation, using them to fuel her growth and success. In doing so, she had not only achieved personal triumph, but had also inspired those around her to believe in themselves and pursue their own passions with determination and heart. Ultimately, she understood that her story was not just about her performance, but about the journey, the lessons learned, and the resilience developed along the way. The talent show was a milestone, a moment of recognition, and a source of inspiration. But it was also a reminder that the journey of growth, learning, and self-discovery continues every day. She moved forward with confidence, passion, and a renewed sense of purpose, ready to face whatever challenges and opportunities the future held, knowing that her courage, dedication, and talent would guide her toward even greater accomplishments.